We've all heard it, that knock on the door that we reluctantly answer to find somebody standing on your front porch with a pamphlet telling you how much money they can save you with solar, but that you only have to pay tens of thousands of dollars to do it. It feels fishy, it sounds fishy, and as much as solar seems like a great idea, there's a lot of bad actors out there. So what I've done today is I have brought in a local expert. I've brought in Gabi Shapiro from Enlight Energy and a fellow KW realtor to help us figure out what we should be looking for when considering solar. Welcome, Gabi. So pumped to have you. Can you just kind of start by telling us about your background with solar and just what your experience is?
Absolutely. I have been working in the solar industry as a solar sales consultant since 2020. And then I shifted over to focus more on real estate starting in 2022. I was really interested in green technology, and solar sales seemed like a great way to make a living and to kind of benefit the planet and the people I was serving. So that's what initially got me into it.
Especially for our area, I think solar is a different nut to crack, so to speak. So talk to me a little bit about what are the red flags that maybe somebody should be looking at if that happens?
I would say one of the biggest red flags is someone who's from out of the area. The more local, the better. There are some fantastic solar companies here. We've heard horror stories about companies coming in, selling a bunch of systems, and then either disappearing or going out of business and not servicing their customers. So having a local company that has a good local reputation and knows the utility companies and their policies and how your system is going to interact with the utility company is really important.
So somebody who is a homeowner, has not really delved into solar, what are the basics that they would need to know if they're considering doing this?
You want to know what kind of offset you're really looking for. Again, it has a lot to do with how the policy with the utility company works. So there are two sort of policies that we see. There's something called net metering, and then there's also something called net billing. With net metering, utility company is giving you credit in the form of energy, right? So for example, your system is creating a bunch of energy during the day. That energy is going to feed your house's energy needs, and any extra is going to get sent back out to the grid, and your electric meter actually spins backwards and measures how much energy you're sending to the utility company. So with net metering, you're getting a kilowatt hour credit for every kilowatt hour you send back to them. So once the sun sets, instead of getting charged for your nighttime energy, you actually get to use those energy credits that you've built up during the day. So with a net metering utility company, you can actually zero out your bill to virtually nothing. We see, something like $15 to $30, which is just the meter fee to have the meter on the house. With net billing, that's a system that GRU recently switched to. They changed their policies, which means instead of giving you a kilowatt hour credit for your extra energy, when your system is sending energy back to the grid, they're going to give you a dollar amount credit. The problem is when you buy a kilowatt hour from your utility company, it may cost anywhere from 14 to 22 cents, somewhere in there. When you're sending energy back to them, they're only going to credit you about 6 or 7 cents for that energy. And so utility companies that have that net billing policy, we find it most beneficial to help our customers with a battery as well. That way they get to store their energy in the home instead of losing on that net billing exchange.
It makes a lot of sense. So that way you're just using it and not having to pull from the grid at all?
The panels are hooked up to sort of a combiner box called an inverter, and that is sort of the control hub. That also decides where it needs to send that energy. So first it's going to feed your house's energy needs. If your house has all of the power that it needs, that extra energy is going to go one of two places. If you don't have a battery, it's going to send it out to the electric grid and you'll get those, net billing credits, right? Or if you have the battery option, it's going to store it in the battery. Say your battery fills up, you can still send energy back. You can get your 6 cents for that kilowatt hour that you send back after your battery is full. Then once the sun goes down, you're either going to pull from your battery first if you have a battery system, and then once the battery runs out, then you would still be able to pull from the grid. So that's one of the misconceptions. People sometimes worry, what happens when the sun goes down, right? You still have power. It's still continuous.
So let's talk about the cost, because I think that's one of the biggest things that most consumers are confused about. How do you navigate that, and how do you know that you should make that move?
Great question. First off, I want to start with saying that solar power is absolutely the cheapest form of energy that we have. It may cost anywhere from $15,000 on up. It depends on the size of the system. It also depends on a few other factors. How that solar system performs in comparison to your electric bill depends on some of the production conditions at the home. Again, that's one of the reasons why it's so crucial to find a reputable company that you can trust to set up that system properly for your home's needs. In regards to this question of cost. So we do have solar financing companies that we partner with. And when we help customers go solar with financing, we're usually matching about the same as their electric bill. Our goal is to get it a little bit under. It's often modest. It's not going to be massive. A lot of people expect it to be free. Not accurate to say solar is free. The great thing about that, though, is that we're trading in an ever-rising electric bill, right? I don't know if you've compared your bills from a few years ago to your bill today. With going solar, it's kind of similar to trading in your rental payment for a mortgage. Your solar finance payment is fixed for 25 or 30 years. It is not going to go up. So you're kind of getting in control of your costs. If they're the same price today, next year when your utility bill goes up, you start saving. Goes up again, you're saving even more. So the savings grows over time.
And it's locking you in. Because I've always kind of wondered, if I'm paying $400, why would I take $400 and pay $400? Because it's going to stay $400 if this becomes $500 or $600. That is really fascinating to me. So is there a way that you can look at somebody and kind of run a calculation on those potential savings as bills go up?
Yeah. What we typically see is that in general, utility bills go up about 4% per year. It's slightly above standard inflation. Let's take a look at some calculations. How much is your utility bill?
Average probably $450.
Okay.
Oh, that's so terrible.
So that means that you are spending $5,400 per year just on electricity.
Oh man, it's like a pit in my stomach.
So people say solar is expensive, but this is what we actually have to compare it to. Assuming that your electric costs go up 4%, that means next year you'd be spending $5,600 on your electricity. The third year, $5,800. And by year 4, you're already at $6,000 for your electric costs.
Wow.
Solar systems, they're typically warranted for 25 years, and they have an estimated 25-year life. And even after that, they're still functioning at about 85% of their original efficiency. So we tend to look at things on a 25-year timescale.
Sure.
Over 25 years, you are going to be spending $211,000 on your electric bill.
Ouch.
So considering your electric costs over a 25-year span, does it seem worth it to spend tens of thousands on a solar system?
That is a genius perspective. Wow. There's also some conversations about being able to make money back. If I set up solar, am I in any way going to get like a check from my utility company for a credit every quarter or something like that? Does that exist?
I wish that were true, but that is one of the misconceptions. It is a cost savings measure. So the savings comes in the form of replacing a cost.
So you said that there's financing options for solar. How does that all work?
Traditionally, solar finance companies have charged a large fee, and it's built into the loan. You'd be financing an extra fee in order to get a great interest rate. So when you're comparing solar companies, that's a really important thing to examine, is how does that financing work? There are other options that are kind of more market rate interest, maybe 7 to 10% right now, and those are not going to have that big financed fee. So one of the important questions you should ask that solar guy at your door is the cash price the same as the financed price?
Good tip.
A third option for paying for solar is to get a HELOC. That has been a very, underutilized, but one of the best ways to help pay for a solar system.
And for those at home who don't know, the home equity line of credit, where you can, take out money against the value of your home to be able to pay for that.
Yes.
Which is probably maybe more favorable terms than some solar lenders may offer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because solar, it's actually a personal loan. A mortgage is a secured loan. Your house is collateral. So you can get more favorable terms for a mortgage than you can for a personal loan.
Now, if you are doing that personal loan or you're getting it through the solar company, how long are you paying for that?
There's, sometimes 10, 15, 20, 25, even 30-year loan options now. A lot of people ask us, at what point has the system paid for itself? When you're using financing, the payoff period, it's actually immediate. If you are one of the lucky ones who has tens of thousands around to buy a system outright, we typically see somewhere between 6 to 8 years is the payoff period. So imagine calling your utility company and saying, hey, I want to prepay my electric bill for the next 7 years, and after that, I'm not going to pay for energy anymore. So
it's funny because with cell phones, you just hit the button, but that just feels like an old school, like I want to slam the phone down.
Yeah.
Now, for the solar panels, I've heard there's options where you can lease the panels, you can own the panels.
Typically, when a customer does not qualify for the federal solar tax credit, that's one of the times when a lease can be really beneficial. So when you go solar, there's a federal incentive, which is a 30% tax credit. It is a one-time tax incentive. 30% of the cost of the system, you're eligible to get that as a credit. So a lot of people confuse deduction and credit.
Sure.
A credit is an actual reduction of what you owe the IRS. There are folks who are on a fixed income. Those are times when a lease might be a better situation. They're able to kind of get a better price if they're not able to get that 30% back.
So what are the conditions? Are there like a couple of things that we should look for to most benefit from solar, or kind of a checklist of must-haves?
Obviously, you want sun on your roof. If there's lots of shade, your system is not going to produce well. The other elements that influence it are the direction. So south facing is going to get the most sun. North is going to get the least amount of sun. If you have panels on east and west, again, it's good, but your east panels are only going to get sun in the morning, and then your west panels are only going to get sun in the evening.
Makes sense.
When they're southern facing, the sun is going to shine on them the whole day. The pitch of the roof has an effect as well. 20 to 22 degree pitch is ideal for solar production here. That depends on your latitude.
This is just so mind-blowing to me because the clarity this has provided has shown me like there's so much value in solar, and with the trusted source and someone local, you can do it in a way that you're not going to get burned.
So glad you think so.
What have I not asked you, or what have we not talked about that we should hit on today?
So just some other important pointers. I had mentioned the importance of going with a local company. Definitely collect multiple quotes to make sure that you're getting straight talk from your solar sales consultant or whoever you're speaking with. The solar industry is not as regulated as the real estate industry. So solar sales reps are not being held to the same ethical standards and don't have the same consequences if they are bending or stretching the truth. So unfortunately, that's part of why the solar industry has gotten such a bad rap. There are some bad actors out there, but don't let that turn you off of a really incredible technology.
And it really, truly is. I think it's such a hot button issue for our local area because we have such outrageous utility bills. Isn't there kind of some changes potentially coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. So GRU recently switched from net metering, the one-to-one credit. They have already switched over to a net billing system. So now folks who are going solar in Gainesville basically need a battery in order for that system to help them get the best savings. It changes numbers for people, even though you do get the added benefit of having backup power. If the grid goes down, the battery provides, works like a generator, provides that backup energy. On the ballot coming up this November, a vote to restore local control of our utility company, of GRU. And that is probably our best hope of getting back to a net metering policy. If we can get local control, we can then have local influence and get back to that net metering incentive.
Good to know, and to know that there was a difference between the two, because how often in an election are you staring at a ballot item going, well, I don't know what this means. So I appreciate the clarification, and whether someone thinks it should be local or not is up to them. But the knowledge of just what to look into, I think, is so incredibly valuable. So there's just so much to know about solar, but what I think is super important is that if you've got a trusted person, there are some major savings to be had. So if you have additional questions, or maybe you have a really special circumstance, Gabi has been kind enough to offer his services. So if you want to set up a consultation, you can go to GabiSolarShapiro.com. And we're really just scratching the surface, because the next set of questions that I want to ask is, how do you handle this when you're selling a home? If you've leased panels, if you own panels, if you still have to pay off your panels, we are going to dive into all the things that you need to know when it comes to the real estate side of solar. And if you've got questions about real estate, you're trying to navigate this market, or you have no idea whether you should be buying or selling right now, that's what my discovery calls are for. So head to the link down in the description. My landing page will get you scheduled. I'm Lindsey Johnson, your resource for all things real estate. See you next time.